In this tutorial, let's look at Spring MVC with Java configs. So we have already seen how to configure with XML based Spring configuration. There are pros and cons for using XML based configuration versus Java config based configuration. And also from Servlet 3 onwards, the web.xml file is optional, and you can also configure whatever you can do in web.xml file through Java configs. There are pros and cons. So if you configure something in an XML, the real disadvantage is that only at runtime. So if you make a typo, if you type a class name or you type a particular configuration incorrectly, you will only know that you have typed it incorrectly when you start compiling it and packaging it. So when you're during the runtime, only you will know whether there's an error. But if you use a Java based configuration, it's type safe. So if you type a class name or something incorrectly, there will be a squiggly thing in your IDE. You will know straight away that there's going to be a compile issue. And also for XML, you can also use tools like Spring IDE, which will alleviate some of these problems. But if you have an IDE like Eclipse, it's easy to search and it's easy to find any compile issues before even any issues before even runtime. You start to run it during compile phase itself, it'll highlight some of the issues. So there are pros and cons for it, and also if you're using transaction management and things like that, using an annotation is less verbose. So there's another additional options you have. You don't have to always stick to Java config. There are cases where XML based configuration is good, or you can mix and match, but in general favor annotations and Java configs to wire up your Spring dependencies. So this is a very simple Spring MVC. So firstly, what we're going to do is going to make some change to the pom.xml so we need to add the JSTL library. So I'll go to the pom.xml here, and in addition to the JavaX Servlet API, we already brought in the Spring Web MVC and also the JSTL, so Java Server Tag libraries. So this is another library that we need to bring it in. In addition to that, we also need to tell Maven. So we need to override. So before, in the previous tutorials, we used the Maven War plugin by default. So, but here, if you want to customize it or pass some specific parameters, then you need to specifically declare that plugin inside your build tag. And then here I'm overriding the Maven War plugin default one, and the version is 3.10. And the reason that I'm overriding is that because I'm not going to use the web.xml file, and Maven plugin by default expects a web.xml file. So I'm going to say not to fail on missing web.xml. So you say fail on missing web.xml to false. The default is true, so I'm overriding that behavior to false. So because we are going to not have a web.xml file, instead of that you're going to use Java based configuration, and Servlet 3 allows you to do that. And so web.xml file is optional from Servlet 3 spec onwards. So those are the only changes here. And also it's a nice to have, I can also override the Maven compiler plugin, and then I can specifically say I'm going to use Java 1.8 as a source, and the target also Java 1.8. And the next step now, so there will be a link below this tutorial that will take you through the step by step. Now let's go and create a new package called com.mytutorialconfig to use the Java based configuration. So here I have already created a package called com.mytutorial.config. So firstly, whatever we did in the application context.xml, so firstly we are doing a component scan to say look for all the controllers in this package com.mytutorial.controller package, and there we are saying this MVC is annotation driven, and thirdly we are going and configuring our view resolver. So we mentioned before you can have multiple view resolvers, and you can use JSP, you can use time leaf, you can use velocity template and so on. So that's we configure it through the bean. So all the three steps that we achieved through this application context.xml, now let's go and see how we can achieve that through Java based configuration. So for that I have created a very simple web configuration class. So it's inside the config. You can create your own package, whichever package you can name it, whatever name, but it's always good to put config so you know that this package contains configuration classes. So if I double click on simple config, so it's at configuration, is annotation says this is a Spring configuration. So if you hover over this, you can see it's a org Spring framework context annotation configuration class. And then this at enable MVC is similar to what you have done here, MVC annotation driven. So you're saying because in the controller and everything we are annotating as at controller, so Spring knows that it's a controller class. So for example here under controller, if you look at some controller here, there's an annotation saying this is a controller, and also we are doing all the request mapping and everything with the annotation. And then here see the component scan is very similar to what we have done in the application context.xml. We have a component scan and we are saying this is the base package to scan. So you can have controllers under com.material.controller dot something whatever. So this is the base package. So similar to that we also specify the component scan with this, which is com.mytutorial.controller. And then inside the class we define it as a bean, and this is called the view resolver. So bean view resolver, which is similar here. We have defined a bean class here, and we are saying internal resource view resolver, and we are saying which directory to look for the views and what suffix to use. And similar configuration is done through a Java class, and it is through the internal resource view resolver. So good thing about that here is if I go and make a typo here, it'll straight away complains that you haven't typed it correctly, so I need to go and put in internal view resolver. But in a spring.xml, if you're using an XML file, if I say miss out an R, it's not going to tell me. So while I have compiled, everything is good. Only when I build it and when I start to run my application, it's going to say, oh, I don't know anything about this internal resource view resolve. It should be a resolver. So this is where the Java based configuration has an advantage. You can easily pick up errors while you are coding itself. The code assist will help you, and also the compiler will help you as well. So if, for example, if I go and take this W out from the view resolver class, straight away there's an underline and says something wrong with it. And I can also use code assist, so I can do control space and it says JSTL view, then I can click on it. So it's more handy and more user friendly, and sort of it's type checked as you start typing things. So that's a major advantage of using Java based configuration. So I have done this for the application context.xml, and now we will go and see how we can replace the web.xml file with the Spring configure with a Spring based configuration. So web.xml file we looked at earlier. We got to define a dispatcher, which is a servlet name, and then we have configured the application context.xml file through the web, and then also we defined a mapping. So anything that comes with this particular URI is mapped to that particular servlet. So now how we're going to achieve that in a simple web app is that we create a simple web application initializer, and then we need to extend one of the Spring classes, which is the abstract annotation config dispatcher servlet initializer. This class is nothing but it makes use of the web app initializer interface. So it implements the web app initializer. So when the servlet container starts, so Tomcat has a servlet container, when it starts, the Spring will automatically bootstrap anything that extends this particular class, and these methods are going to be invoked. And when this invokes, we have already configured a simple web configuration. So you do a get root configuration classes, and you already have. So if I select this and click on F3 and I go to this particular configuration class we looked at earlier, so it enables web MVC through annotation, component scanning is implemented, and also the view resolver is done. So this is how we bootstrap the configuration Spring class through the get root config classes method. And then we need to do the servlet mapping. So the dispatcher servlet is automatically bootstrapped, and then here we say this is the URL pattern. So we need to look for something /entry *. So this the simple initializer. Now we can go and build this. So if I go and run, select on this and say run as maven clean, and then run as maven install. So it's all clean now. So your target folder is gone. There's nothing inside there. Then I go and right click on it again and then say run as maven install. So this will build my WAR file, web archive file. Here's the web archive file. And now I can copy this, and I go into my Tomcat installation and go into the web apps folder, and I paste it and try to override whatever had this before. It's copied, override, it's overridden, and then I go in and go to the bin folder and do startup bat to start up my Tomcat. Now it's going to throw me an error. This is because, and let's go and see what error it is. It is saying the start organization is saying illegal exception, failed to register servlet with the name dispatcher. Check if there is another servlet registered under the same name. So it's saying the dispatcher servlet is getting registered twice. It is obvious that because we have provided a replacement configuration for the web.xml file, but we did not delete it. So we have a web.xml file, and also we have this simple Java based configuration. So they are conflicting, so it's trying to load it twice. So let's go and now delete the web.xml file because we have done it through Java based configuration. And also let's go and delete the application context.xml file as well because we have done it through Java based configuration. Now I have to go and build it again. So I'll go run as maven clean and then maven install. Then I'm going to install it with run as maven install, and it's going to build me the web archive file which is deployable to Tomcat. So if I go into target, there's a simple WAR file. I just copy this and go back to my web apps folder, paste it again and replace the previous one. Now I'm going to go into here, Tomcat bin folder, run the start bat. So there has been another error as well. It's saying component standard localhost. So let's go and see what the error is. Failed to start component standard localhost simple web, and why it couldn't start. Failed to register servlet with the name dispatcher. Check if there's another servlet registered under the same name. So the same error, looks like it hasn't been copied properly. So I'm going to clean up this web apps folder again, and then I'm going to build it and deploy it again. Okay, so the issue was basically I had two sets of these, another set of initializers inside the different package, so I've deleted them, and also the web.xml is gone and the application context.xml is gone. So now I've already built it and have deployed it, and then I can start the Tomcat server now again, and there's no error. It's starting okay, and it's saying simple web.deployed as well. So now we can go to the browser and we can test it again. So now I go and type in localhost 8080 simple web entry. So anything with the entry is going to go to the dispatcher servlet, because I have already configured that with my simple web initializer that extends the Spring's abstract annotation config dispatcher servlet initializer. So anything with the entry / asterisk is going to go to the dispatcher servlet. So it goes to the dispatcher servlet, and we're getting this to enter the user ID and the password. We can enter something here, and then it's going to come back and say successfully logged in user GGF. So we have achieved the same thing, configuration, Java based configuration as opposed to XML.